Is YouTube?
YouTube.
And we're back, and it's COMP305. We can still record. The show must go on, right? And it is week 4 of the winter 2016 semester. Lesson 4, part 3 of our recording, because the broadcast system and the event system on YouTube is down, right, for something or another, right? Maybe I broke it the last time I put up all those videos. Who knows, right? But anyways, we're recording this, and what I'll do is I'll do my best to put this up as soon as I can, up on YouTube directly, so it'll be the other way of doing it. This is kind of not as nice. I like to do it as we go, but it is what it is. Okay, so last time where we left off the game like this, where it makes some noise, right? And let's see if this actually works. There we go. So I clash into the crowd. I can't go over here. Yay! And it picks up some stuff. And it also keeps track of my score on the back end. It keeps track of my life and my score, and that's all happening directly inside my scripting, right? So that's going on in my game controller, right? My game controller itself is sending out those messages, these debug logs, right? Well, that's great, but what I want to do is when these values are set, I want it to update my scoreboard. I don't got a scoreboard yet, and I think that's the next thing we need to do together. So let's put that together, all right? So we need to make a UI. And in Unity, there's a couple ways to do this. Let's see this. So this is like UI. We're going to go through the UI a couple times, but this is Unity UI 101. Okay, this is like, here we go from the beginning. Okay, how do we do this? So first thing I want to do is I want to right click somewhere down here inside our hierarchy, and I want to go to UI, right? And I want to put some text together. Notice how I don't go and create another container, just text. Click text, please. Yay, it adds a couple things here, and you're going to go, holy crap, what is this doing? Right? Well, we'll talk about this in a second. Let's see. In the game, notice that my text is on the bottom corner of the screen, right? But hold on, in my scene, it's showing my text. I don't know if your text is showing up there, but my text is showing up at the bottom left corner of the screen. We can fix that. Notice that when I scroll out, my window looks like this. Does your window look like that? That's weird. Shouldn't it be that this window is on top of this window, right? Not so in Unity UI. What Unity UI tries to do is it's trying to create a system where it's outside of our viewable range. So don't look at this or the positioning of this to find out where the text is relative to this. What you want to look at is the actual UI position here. So notice my text on the bottom left-hand corner. We need to change that. First, let's go back to our component. So a text object is like another object, except that it does not have a transform component. This is the one object. Remember we talked about all game objects have a transform component? That's the one exception. Our text and our canvas, when we launched the text object, it created 3 things. The text object, a canvas that holds the text object, right? And an event system that allows us to click and do all kinds of interactivity with it. Those are the 3 things it adds just by me adding the text object. Cool. That's number 1. 2, notice that we have a Rect transform as opposed to a regular transform. That's a different thing for Unity UI. So Unity UI has a Rect transform. This is a good question for a quiz. All right. And also notice that my width and my height is the width and height of my text object, right? My text object itself, which is 160 pixels by 30 pixels. That's what it is. Okay, so there's a couple things going on here. On the canvas side, look at what we have here. Render mode is screen space overlay, right? Screen space overlay means that it's overlaying the screen itself, right? So no matter what we put here, it'll always appear on the screen. And this is for most games, it's perfectly fine, the screen space overlay. By the way, this works perfectly, as an example, for 3D games as well. Notice under the canvas element, we also have, this is below the transform, we also have something called pixel perfect. Pixel perfect. If I click this and see how this does, and if I go to my game, notice still that I have my new text down here in the left corner. That's how it appears. Although when I look at my scene, there's nothing in my scene. It's here in the canvas. So we don't look at my actual window in this particular view, the way we're looking at it. We look at the actual canvas for where the text is positioned. That's weird. Okay, That's cool. That's cool. So this is one option. One option is a screen space overlay. The other option, if I change this, I can always go screen space camera. Let's click that one. Now, for that one, in order for it to work properly, I need to connect a camera to this thing, and I also have to designate an order in layer, right? Order in layer. Now, this is only for 2D, okay? That it would work properly. So I would take my camera, and I drag and drop it inside my render camera, and now my render camera and my canvas are one. Okay, I've changed it from screen space overlay to screen space camera, right? And I've tied my camera object by drag and dropping it into here. Notice that the plane distance is 100. No, that's not a problem. I need to also think about this. Order in layer. What's the order of my ocean? 0. What's the ocean of my island? 1. What's the ocean? The next one is the plane, right? And my clouds. So where should I put my text? It's got to be above all that, right? Maybe 4, but what if I actually add other objects, whatever? Let's make it 10, right? Something crazy, or 100, something else, right? Something that's really high up there. So let's make it 10 for now, because you know you want to see that. And now when we make it 10, notice that on the bottom left-hand corner, we get a pixel perfect display of our game again, right? So now we have a exact location of where this thing is, this new text. This is good. Makes it easier for us, right? That's all it is. You don't have to have it this way. I could have left it the other way and used the space that highlights my canvas to move my text around. But this is just easier for us. Okay, my text. This isn't right. I want my text, and this is going to be, notice that in here there's a text component, a text script. So there's a couple components. One is the Rect transform of my text component. The other one is my text script component. That's part of my text. Okay? I want to change the text value of my text component to, let's do lives on the left-hand side, and then, I don't know, score on the right-hand side. Would you agree? Doesn't matter, right? I've done it different ways, different times. So let's do lives, we'll put a colon, and we'll set it to 0. Not that it matters, but that's what it's going to look like this. By the way, this is just text, it's just string. We're just doing it for positioning, okay? Text and lives is 0. Okay, we can't really see the text because it's black. So let's change the color. So go over in the color properly. Let's change the color to white, right, for now. And it's pretty small. If you want to really be accurate, according to what I've done before, white is not a great color either on top of blue, especially since there's little elements here. So maybe even a yellow might be better. So if I go to yellow, and I go into the yellow spectrum as an example, I want to make it more yellowish, right? Notice that the RGB value here, you can go RGBA. So I can turn up yellow and turn down, I can turn down green and red and green. So here's blue. And how do you make yellow? Well, blue goes down and red and green go up, right? That's how you make yellow, I'll be okay. Yellow, right? So it's 255, 2550, 255, or FFF, FFF, 00. You could have just chosen from there. I could have. There's all kinds. I'm just showing you. There's also this one too. You can choose this option. You can also go over here and use HSV. There's all kinds of options. I'm just showing you. You can also type it in, the hex color value here, and there's also some presets that you can choose. If you click this button, you can choose a color preset as well. All right, but let's leave it at yellow. So yellow is pretty cool. It's still pretty darn small, and I think we need to make it a little bigger. Like for example, something like 40 pixels. So we're going to use a font size of 40. Okay, now it's gone. What happened? How come it's gone?
Still small.
Now the space of my text box is too small to contain my text that I've made 40. So what do? Up here, notice that my height is 30. Let's make it 50. There, lives 0. That's pretty cool. Still, width is 160, we're cool, but it's down here. Now you'd be forgiven to think that you can use this text and drag it around like this. That would be one way to do it. But instead of doing it that way, here's what I want you to do instead. I want you to click on this text Rect transform area. And when you click onto it, notice that as I've clicked, there are different positions here. An example would be the top left corner, which is where I want this thing to be. I want it always to appear on the top left corner of my screen. If I click that, that's the center now, my top left corner, right? That's what it represents, the pivot point, if you will. Let's reset this thing to 0 now and see what happens. If I go 0, 0, right? Here's what happens. So it's cool. That's where my pivot is, but that's not really what I want. I'm close to what I want to do. What I want to do here. I'm close, but that's not quite what I want to do, right? What else could I do with my rect transform? I could do that. What about this button up here? This button, right? If I click left, so this is top, left, top, left. That's what I'm doing here. If I want to put the left side, if I click left or top, nothing changes here. Top left is where I'm at. How about this? What if I press the Option or Alt on Windows? Notice how it changes my thing. Is it Alt or Option? Is it Alt or Control? If you press Alt, is it Alt? Click Alt on Windows. Notice how it changes. My rect transform changes from this to this. And I want you to click on this now. Now look what happens. It automatically goes to the top left corner of the screen. What does this mean? It means that regardless of what, and I did this by doing this. I pressed Alt or Option on the Mac, right? And I click this top left corner. Well, that's what I'm doing. What this does is it changes my position. Take a look at my position now. My position X is 80. My position Y is minus 25, and so on. It actually adjusts it. Unity is smart enough to adjust it to the top left corner of the screen. All right, and now remember, my game is bound to 640 by 480, right? I can change this. If I go to free aspect for a second, right, it's still on the top left corner of my screen. How about if I go to 16 by 9? Well, that's where we have a problem, but it's still the top left corner of the screen, even though it just shows the ocean here. It'll always be on the top left corner of the screen, even if you go to a phone. This is responsive text. We want this kind of stuff. We want to make a responsive UI, and this is the first step. Okay, let's go back to our regular resolution, which is pixel perfect, 640 by 480. Right, this is how it looks. Okay, this is cool. I want a little bit of padding on the left-hand side. So what I'm going to do here, go back to my scene view and just pull it across a little bit. Just give me an idea of what's moving. And it looks like what's happening is my position X is going up, right? So I'm going to just undo that. It's 80. Let's give it about, put it into 90. Let's see what 90 looks like. 90 is pretty good, right? So I'm giving it a little bit of padding. And the same thing goes from the top. I want it to come down just a touch from the top, right? So, if you look at this, I'm going to pull it down and it goes from minus 25. Let's give it minus 35 from the top, right? So it's kind of in the top left corner of the screen, but it's not exactly the top left corner because we don't want it to hug the screen so closely. It looks kind of ugly, right? There it is. See how there's a little bit of padding, right? Or margin. You might even call it margin because it's a separate component from the screen if you count the screen. And maybe if you don't like this, lives, this is pretty cool. But remember, I loaded up a font for you guys, a font, right? In our fonts, when we first started off, I have this Doc51 font, and I want to use this for my game because I think regular font really sucks, right? So I'm going to pull this in. I'm going to kind of scroll down here. I'm going to take my Doc51, and I'm going to pull it into where it says Arial, and replace the Arial font with Doc51, which makes it look way cooler, right? I give you that font, or that's part of your MP assets when you downloaded your assets from GitHub. So cool, I got my lives font, right? I'm making my scoreboard here, right? That's what I'm doing. Let's do the same thing. Let's rename this object. Text makes no sense to me, right? We got to rename this thing so it makes sense. Okay, so let's call it something different. So I'm going to go up here, instead of text, we're going to call it lives label. Lives label, right? And I'm making it that way so we can access it later, right? We want to access this label later. Okay, cool. And also I want to make it so that it makes sense in the hierarchy, right? Okay, cool. Next, I want to create a space for my score, and it's going to be on the right-hand side. Let's see if you can do it without me. Go ahead. Do it without me. Go put another object. I want you to right-click on the canvas, and I want you to add a new UI component, a new text component. This is how you do it. And now I want you to position it so it always appears on the top right corner, and give me a little bit of padding. And you're going to give me the numbers, all right? I want you to give me the numbers that I'm going to put it at when I use this component. And what do I do with my rect transform? Because I need to use my rect transform to make it responsive so it applies to the top right corner of every screen. That's what I want it to be, right? So what do I do using the same pattern, okay? And I want to call this label score label, right? Makes sense? So call it score label too. Go ahead, try and do it yourself. And then I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And for people who are watching the video, just fast forward, please. And then you can, you don't have to watch us do this thing. I'm going to wait for everyone to tell me what it is. And whoever's got it, put your hand up. Whoever's got it first. This is like a game jam. Whoever got it first, put your hand up, right? See if you can make it work. Because you're going to do it on your own, right? Because you're going to make your own scoreboard pretty soon for your own game. So there's two pieces to scoring. One is you need some kind of display, which is this. This is our scoreboard right here, right? You need a display. And the second thing is when you have the display, you got to update it. And how do we do that, right? How do we create our display update? That's easy, actually. But this is the tough part. Aligning things properly, making sure they display properly, right? And how they update. By the way, on your midterm, you will have to do this. One of your requirements will be to create a score for your game, all right? The game on the midterm. So you need to know how to do this here now, all right? And it's good to know how to do it for your game as well. It's something that should become easier for you, and that means you need to study. Okay, who's got it? Someone should have it by now. That shouldn't take you that long. Anybody? Woo! You got it? Tell me what it is. Tell me what I need to do. Tell me. So new text, right? I did that already. Okay, cool. Here it is in the middle, right? And let's go back to my scene. So how do I set it so that, first of all, I need to rename it. So I go over here and rename it. I'll give you that part too. Score label. Okay, I want to change my font to match my other font. What do I do? Drag and drop. Very good. So here's my font. Let's do that first. And how about the color? What do I do for the color? Right? Where do I change that? The color, right? That's pretty simple. Hey, can I click on this little dropper, eyedropper? That's easy. Click on the eyedropper, and then if I go over here to this color over here somewhere, maybe we can match it up. And that's going to be very close, but it's not going to be very accurate. Let's take a look and see what this is. It's close, but probably the better way, the more accurate way, of course, would be to turn this down, turn these all the way up, right? As an example, so this color is the same, right? But you could use the eyedropper if it's a bigger example. Cool. How about our font? It looks pretty small. Okay, 40. Is that what I made it? Okay, 40. It's gone. What happens? What do I need to do to make my font bigger?
It's the
height goes to be bigger. That's 30. 30 is smaller than 40. I need to make it, I don't know, 50. I made it, right? Doesn't have to be 50, but I'm making it 50. There you go. Okay, cool. My text's got to say score, right? And maybe give it a 0 or something like that. Cool, there's score 0. It's still not showing my 0. How come? I need to make it wider, right? Okay, how wider should I make it? 200. Let's make it 200 for now, right? Why? Because I hope my score is going to be bigger than 1,000, right? So that means I need to provision. I need to test this. And you know what? To test it properly, this is one thing I would do. I would sit there and go like this. I'll go, if I want 9,999, well, that's never going to show up, right? So I got to test it here. That's why this is 4, right? So I know that I need more than 200. Maybe, how much? 250? Let's make it 210. Let's see what that does. 210, no. 220, no. 230. Let's make it 240 just to give it 10,000. How about that, right? Just to give the ability to go higher, right? And how about the comma? If we ever were going to do some kind of weird comma in there, that even works. Not that we would, but we would kind of we have room for even that, right? Okay, cool. So 240 by 50 is where we go. Okay, how do I make this thing, this example text here, how do I make it go to the top right corner of the screen? What is the next thing I do? So this is the Rect transform. I'm going to click in this little area right here, this anchor box. That's what it is. And then I need to click the Alt or Option key on the Mac, and then click this one, right? Okay, cool. Now that did most of it. It actually set it up nicely for us, right? Okay, I want to move it to the right about 10 and down about 10, because to match up with what we have here, to give it the exact position. So what do I do here? So I would check it out. That's what I would do. I would check this out. I would move this to the right and see what's moving. So as I move this over, notice that my position X moves bigger, a greater minus number. Right? That's why the reason why I'm telling you this is because you may think that it's positive, but actually it's more negative, right? So I want to give it minus 130. That's probably what it should be. And the same thing goes with my position Y. It's going to move down. Now this one is positioned at minus 35. I'm guessing it's probably going to be minus 35 here as well, because that's not changed too much, right? There we go. Okay, cool. So we have our lives and score. That's cool.
Alignment we can give it as right? Because initially
You can do that too. You can align it right. There's all kinds of things you can do here. But for here, this is good enough. Okay, cool. So my game starts. And what I want to do is I want to set my lives to 5, right? And my score to 0. That's what's going to happen, right? How do I do that? And this is the scripting piece that you don't know how to do, right? I have enough time to tell you how to do it, and so here it is. Okay, let's try to do it together, right? So I'm going to do it in my game controller, all right? This is the thing I'm going to do. So if I bring up my game controller, right now it has a script called the game controller script attached to it. Here it is, right? I'm going to double-click this game controller script to bring it up, all right? Here's my game controller script. Now, I want to make some public variables like this that I want to have access to on the inspector again, right? But in order for me to use the Unity UI, right, because it's a new Unity UI, I have to use another using statement on the top in order for us to include that new namespace that I'm using. It's a new system that I'm using, okay? One day it may not be, we may not have to do this, but for now we do. We're going to say using Unity engine.ui. We need to do that. If you don't do this, text type variables will not appear to be accessible, right? You won't be able to type them in. It will say, don't know what you're doing. What is that? So you need to include this using statement up here. Hint, hint, again, another great question. What's the first thing you do when you script the UI? You need to put this using statement to include that namespace into your code. Okay, cool. That's one. Second thing is, in the public instance variables area, wherever that is in your code, when you want to, I want to attach a reference to my script, right? A reference to my script. And how I'm going to do that, I'm going to say public, right? It's going to be of type text, right? Because it's a text object, right? And I want to call it the same name as what it is, you know, in the UI, which is lives label. That's why I made it this way, guys and girls. Lives label, right? And public text score label. All right, cool. That's good. I'm going to save it. And am I done? Well, there's a couple ways to do this. I could do it programmatically where I connect my lives label and my score label with a certain number of steps. But for now, let's do it the easy way. And that's why I've connected it on the public space here. If I go back to Unity, right, I notice that if I click away and click back to my game controller, I have 2 more spaces here. My lives label and my score label. And guess what I'm going to do? Drag and drop. Lives label goes to lives label. Score label goes to score label. And we've got our connections. So, take a guess how I would update the text property of my lives label. There's 2 possibilities you can possibly think in your head if you're a C# programmer. What are they? Lives label.text and maybe set text, depending on what API you're using. Usually there's something like that. I guess it's going to be text. That's my guess for this one. Let's check it out. If I go back, I know I'm not trying to joke around here. Really, this is how we do it. So instead of doing this, right, debug.log in my setter for my score value, right, my setter for my score value, let's set up my score value for the very first time, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to go over here, and instead of debug.log, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this dot score label dot text, right, is equal to. Now this is the thing you can do. Here's my score value, right? Here's my score value. But instead of adding the score value, I have to add in, because it'll wipe out, the score itself. So I'm going to have to say score, colon, and then a space, like that. Plus, which is the concatenation operator here. The plus concatenates these 2 objects because now this becomes a string. That's what it does. So this converts to a string, and this one here is the score. Yay! Let's see if that works. And then the same thing goes down here. If we're right, we can do the same thing over here. So I'll say this dot lives label, right, is equal to lives, and then a space plus, and then the lives label. Now, remember when I told you we want to use our setters and getters? This is the reason. Because we use our setters when I'm setting things, bam, my score is updated right away. As opposed to going through, making a connection, blah, 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 checking the update, blah, blah, blah. Too many things to do. It would be way harder to do it any other way. This is the easy way. Okay, let's see if this bloody thing works. So if I'm right, and if we did this correctly, and I've made my connections and everything else, if I go back to Unity, and if I press play, right, I have a problem. Let's see what it is. All compiler errors needs to be fixed before you continue. Okay, cool. It says, ACID scripts controller, blah, blah, cannot implicitly convert type string to Unity type text. Right? Huh? Is that what you got too?
Yes.
Sorry? Not GUI text, it's text. Right? So I need a text. So again, like I said, remember, what was that? Yours is working. Okay, let's take a look and see what mine is. How come mine's failing? All right? I'm just showing you. I knew. I'm just saying. This is the answer. This is why this didn't error out, but this did. I can't convert my whole text object to a string, and this is where the error is. Okay? Cool. Let's try this going back. A little error, and let's press play. Notice that goes away. My error goes away, and press play now. I should see lives 5, 2, 2, 1, 0, right? -1. Uh-oh.
Yay.
It's going to allow me to do that.
Yay.
I'm getting killed here. -11. I'm not doing anything. Oh, yeah, I got to play. Hold on.
Yay.
Oh, man, I'm getting killed here. Right? Oh.
Yay.
Oh. It works. So I have feedback from my text. This is a good thing, right? I'm getting feedback from my text values. This is cool. Now I need to quit my game. All right, I need to do that. How do I stop my game? I'm going to stop my game. What do I do, right, in order for me to do that? I'm gonna have to, it's a condition I got to test for, yeah? Well, I'm getting the value, right here, right? Getting the value right here in my lives label, and this is where I would do it. Now, I'm sorry to say, I wouldn't do it right now. I'm not going to do it at this particular juncture with you, right? I'll show you why. I'm going to update GitHub first because this is a great place. I've added a new feature. I've added my scoreboard, and I've added the connection for my scoreboard, which is actually two things. I could have done 2 commits here, right, to my game. So this is a great place. And of course, the way I would do it is I would go into Unity. I would save my scene. I will also save my project, and then quit Unity. Right? Notice I do that every time. I quit Unity, and then I do my update. I'm going to use my terminal or a command prompt to swim to where Unity exists on the desktop. Right? And inside there, I'm going to find Unity. Now you can also do it other ways. Drag and dropping is another easy way to do that. Right? And it's going to be mail pilot. Right? There it is. I'm going to say git add dot, which adds all my changes, and git commit -m. I'm going to the m -m for message, which is going to say, hey Unity, added scoreboard, right? And then git push origin master. And what this is going to do is going to push all my changes up to my GitHub repository online. Done. Let's get back into Unity and make those changes now, right? Go back here, kick off Unity, and choose my project, which is COMP305, W2016, and so on. Okay, cool. Notice that nothing's here, right? Well, here's this. This is good. And I'm looking at my scene. This is my scene. This is an example of what it's going to look like. And I always prototype like this. I always try and say, how much room do I need for my lives and my score, right, as an example. Now, I want to be able to quit the game, right? So I want to stop the game. Right, and just like you saw on your up online when you did your tutorial, when I reach a 0 score, right? Listen to my words. When I reach a 0 score, I want the game to end, right? Live 0. Thank you. I want my score. I want my game to end. So what does game end mean? Because I know it's an if statement. If my score value, which I'm keeping track of, by the way, in my game controller, my score value, when that is 0, right, I want something to happen. So that's where my thing is going to be, right? And I'm going to test that right in my setter. So once I set my value to 0, That's what's going to happen. I'm not going to wait to do it somewhere else and test anywhere else. Right there when I set my value to 0, right? That's when it's going to happen. Okay, so that's the trigger. So I can start writing that text right now. Let's try writing that thing. So in my game, right here, when my lives go to 0, as an example, let's do this. So I'm going to say, before I even pump out this thing, this change, right? I'm going to test. I'm going to say, if this dot underscore lives value, right, is less than or equal to 0, because sometimes if you get hit with more than one cloud, it might go less than 0, and I don't want to show that value. I don't want to show it on the screen. I just want to quit the game. If it's true that it's less than, then what am I going to do? Something, right? Else, if it's not less than 0, right, I need to put the else in there because I want to set my lives value up, right? Here it is. Else, if it's not less than 0, then do this, right? Only if it's not less than or equal to 0. And the reason for that is because I'm always wanting to update my lives if it's not less than or equal to 0. Okay, cool. So what am I going to do if it's true? If it's true that my lives value falls less than or equal to 0, I need to stop the game. What does game stopping really mean, actually? It means that my plane will be invisible, right? I want to show a game over label. That's what it means. I want to show a game over label. And when I show my game over label, I want to stop the clouds from coming down and the island. I don't want any of that to happen, right? How do I do all that? Right? You got to be careful. How do I do that? Well, that's what I want to do. And that sounds like a method to me, right? Like end game or something like that. And that's what I would probably do. I would write an end game method, right? So let's do that. I'm going to call it a private method, right? So it's going to be, I'm going to say, I haven't written this yet, but I'll say this dot underscore end game, right? And there's no method like that yet. Let's write that in. So that's what I want to do. So I'm not going to write it in here. That doesn't make any sense, right? I want to make it so it's a private method here in the private methods area. And we're going to call it private void, right, underscore end game, right? Okay, cool. In this private method, we're going to say the following. We're going to say that we want to show a game over label. Do we have such a label?
No.
Let's make it. Right? So let's go back to our Unity. And I want to put it here. I want it to be part of my scene, but I want it to be invisible. How do I do that? Well, let's make it first. So I'm going to go into my canvas. Here it is. I'm going to right click. I'm going to show you how to do this just for time. Right? I'm going to right click here and I'm going to go into my text, my UI text. Here it is, UI text. And in my UI text here, I'm going to put in some label. That's going to be my game over label. Game over label. We can make it as big as we want. Okay. I'm also going to say game over. Game over. Right? That's what the label is going to say. I'm going to still use my fancy script, my font. So I'm going to go to my font and drag and drop my font over. You can do it with me. Right? I want to change my font size this time to like something like 60 or 80. So let's go 60, which means that my height has to be at least 70 or 80. Let's make it 70. And my size is got to be something like, 200 or 300. So let's make it like 200. That's not large enough. Let's make it 300. That's not large enough. How about 320? How about 400? That's pretty good. Oh, even that's pretty small. Look at that. It's like barely enough, big enough to be. Actually, maybe that's too big, right? That's okay. What's the really safe value to put in there? The safe value, safest value you can put in there if you want to have something centered in the middle of your screen all the time. Size of your screen, 640. Follow me here, 640. Now, even though it appears way over here, it doesn't matter because down over here, you have some controls that can center your text, which is nice and easy, right? Instead of you guessing what it is, right? Cool. All right, I want to make it yellow, so I'm going to go in here and then change my values so that the red and green value are up and my blue value is low, just to keep in the concept the same. Game over, right? Everything so far is good. Is game over really big enough? Well, that's pretty good. How about a high score? I want to kind of give my score, my final score as well. That's probably what I want to do. For now, let's see if we can get to the game over piece. How about that? Let's see if I can print this out. Okay, notice that on the top, you have a couple of things. There is a checkbox here, right? This checkbox, game over label, removes or returns the object to the game. It's almost like an enable disable. That's what I want you to think about it. Or there's another option, visible invisible, right? Visible is equal to true or false. Those are the two options. Which one should I use? I recommend visible as opposed to enable disabled. Why? Because visible, it's always there. Enable disabled actually removes it and puts it back into the hierarchy, right? It's a little bit harsher, right? So let's try that. So we're going to go back into our script. And by default, what I want to do is make another reference, right? So here's a public text. And we're going to call this game over label. There it is. That's the one we need. We're going to make a couple of these now. And this game over label that we want to put in here, I want to make a connection. So the first thing we put it into our public instance variables here. And I'm going to go back to Unity. I'm going to drag and drop my game over label into my game controller script, which is available now, right? So game over label, another reference. There it is. Okay, now that I've done that, I've made my game over label there. I want to go back into my scripting, right? And in my start, in my initialize method, I want to make it invisible by default. So I'm going to say, not just my score value, my lives value are here, but I'm going to say, well, this dot game over label, right? Dot, and let's see if I have a visibility, right? What would it be? Let's take a look. If you don't know what it is, it's kind of like a visible invisible thing, right? So let's take a look. It's not support, it's not text, it's not call, right? Can you see what it might be? How do I make it visible invisible? Oh, it's got some sets here, right? Is active, is destroyed, here we go, is invoking, enabled, that's the one I was saying, it's hard. Is there a way of, to set it visible or invisible? And that's what we have to look to see if there's something like that. And by the way, Unity frequently changes this thing, so it looks like enable is the only thing we have an option to do. Let's try that out. So game over label, I know that they had a visible and invisible before too. So enabled is equal to false, right? And when I do my game over, right? This is my game controller, right? When I do my game over in my private instance variable in my endgame, I want to say that this dot game over label dot enabled. I'd rather really not do this, is equal to true. And I think there is another function, I just can't remember. Okay, cool. So let's see if that works. So I'm going to go back to my game. Don't worry about it showing here in Unity. Remember, this is just a mock-up for us. This is a prototype. And as we run, this is what we really see. Let's see if it works. Yay, that's pretty cool. We have a label there. Remember we talked about preloading. It's already preloaded, right? Wow, this is a crazy game, man. It's hard. You're probably not going to play it.
Yay.
Oh. But I'm still playing, right? So I'm not quite done yet. It still does not, notice how it doesn't update my lives anymore because it's 0, right? So I want to change all this stuff up. I want to destroy or stop the stuff from resetting, right? So when it's gone, after it's done, after it kills me, the clouds and the everything goes out of the screen, as an example, and then it doesn't reset. It only resets. It'll just stop after the screen, after it goes there. If it's not, if it just doesn't reset, that's what I want the effect to be, right? Instead of resetting. Or do I want to kill them? Because what if I want to reset the game? How do I reset the game again? I'm going to have another method, right? I'm going to have another method to stop the game, right? To reset the game, to start playing this thing again. I'm going to have another method, right? So let's try this out. What do you recommend I do? Since you fancy programmers, right? I want to make it so that I don't have an ocean. I have an ocean, but my plane is gone. Plane has disappeared, right? It's gone. And I don't have any more islands coming down. So they're gone too. Make them invisible, right? That's the thing to do. But if I make them invisible, and when I disable them, they're gone. They're removed from the hierarchy. They can't do anything with them. I can't move around. They don't collide. None of that happens. Okay? Let's show you how this is done. So I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to say, well, oh darn. How do I need a reference to the plane, and I need a reference to the island. If I don't have those references, I can't disable them, right? Would that be true? Right? Okay. Do I want to do it in my, here's the philosophical question. Do I want to do this in the game controller, or do I want to do this in the actual plane or island or cloud itself? What would I rather do, right? Game controller sounds like a right move. But if I wanted to do the game in the cloud or the island or whatever, because I have like a bunch of islands to take care of, and I have a bunch of other stuff to do, what do I do, right? Well, I could make a check. I can make one reference. Instead of referencing all those 4 objects, I can reference the game controller and all the other objects if I want to. That's another option. And when I reference the game controller and those options, I can say, well, if I can check every frame, if my lives is 0, then don't show those objects anymore. I could. Problem with that is they will never turn themselves back on again. I'm just saying, these are just options, right? How about this, right? If I kill the objects and I want to restart the level, is there something like that? There is, right? So let's think about restarting the level and resetting everything from scratch, as if I'm loading this level up for the first time. That would solve my issue, right? So I never have to kind of do all that again, re-enable everything again, right? So I just have to disable stuff. So let's just do this. So I need to get some references. So I'm just saying there's different options, different ways of doing things, and there's people who will do this stuff in different ways online when you watch it. You might say, hey, look, he did it in a different way than Tom did. Yeah, because there's 10 different ways to do the same thing or more. Okay, let's do this. So I want to get some references. I want to get a public reference of my text, of my plane, right? Now, there's a couple ways to do this. I can do this through my script, or I can do it through tag name. I want to just do it through script, right? So I'm going to say, let's call this my plane controller. Here's my plane controller. Doesn't matter. I can use plane controller or my, the option stuff. My plane controller itself, right? Which I'm going to call plane, okay? And I'm also going to do it for my other ones. Right now I already have access to my cloud controller. Notice how they're here already, right? So I don't have to do that for these, right? So my island controller, I need access. So I'll say island controller. We're going to call this island, right? So there's my island controller, a reference. And down into my initialize, notice how I already made a reference to my clouds. I instantiate them here, right? I instantiate my clouds. I need a reference to these, so it means I have to go back to Unity. Let's go back to Unity here and pull them in as a reference. So wait, there they are, plane and island. And let's pull those things in as well. So I'll make my plane, here's my plane, drag and drop my plane, there it is. And my island, I'm making the connections, there it is, my island. My plane and my island are there now, yay. Okay, I know this sounds crazy and you're looking at it going, wow, this is dumb. I don't even have to know how to script. You're right, you don't have to know how to script very much at all to do Unity, right? But we're going to show you some other advanced stuff. Okay, so finally I've connected everything, and in my end game I want to say that the game object that that my plane is connected to, right, which is really my plane controller, right? The game object that my plane is connected to, I want that, just like I did the cloud.gameObject, I want it to be set to disabled. So I'm going to say this.plane.gameObject.enabled, right? Uh-oh, that's bad. How come it's not showing as oh, there it is. Oh, it's giving me an error. How come? Right? I can't.
Enabled and disabled, right? So by itself it implies that.
Is it? No. This top island dot game object dot enabled is equal to false is what I want to say. My end game. False, not true. Okay, how come it doesn't work? How come I can't pull up my enabled or disabled for a game object that's of type island, right? Well, I have a reference to the island and I can do this. I can go cloud.gameObject and instantiate a game object. But how come I can't do an enabled and a disabled? Well, there's a trick for this. So if I go dot, and let's say if I see all my game objects options that I have, scene, set active, set active, hold on, set active, right? Does that make sense? So I go set active, right? Is it set active is equal to false? Can I do that? Does that work? Let's try this out. Set active is equal to false. What's the difference between enabled and set active, right? Set active, if you look at it, says the Boolean value activates the activist to the game object. If I hover over this, it says enable behaviors are updated, disabled, and behaviors are not. Right? Could I do, instead of game enabled disabled is different than active inactive. Let's see if this works. First of all, let's see if my plane and my island, they're gone, right? I don't want them to be around anymore. Go away, island and plane. Go away, I said, right? And let's see if this works. Well, I have an error. It says this. It says the left-hand side of an assignment must be a variable, a property, or an index. So that set active is incorrect, right? Do I have to do it? It's a method, so it's set active, a method. And I can put a Boolean value, which would be false, like this. This is the way you do it. Instead of equal sign, you use it's a method call, right? And that might work. Let's see if that works. Right? So set active to false. Two ways of doing it I've showed you now. Let's try this out. And does the error go away? Yay. Let's try it out. So I play. I'm going to die. And then gone. And guess what? What happens? My sound goes away because it's part of my plane. My clouds are still going though. Am I okay with my clouds still going? I think so. And you know why? It's a pain in the ass to turn every single cloud off. And it's kind of a neat looking effect too, right? Like clouds are going, I got killed, plane is gone, right? So this is okay. So let's pause it here, take a 5-minute break. When we come back after the 5-minute break, right? No problem. No problem. In 5 minutes, we'll come back from the bio break, and then we'll do some refinements to the game. That's what I want to do with you guys, like how to restart the game if I want to do that. And then at the end, I want to talk about assignment number 2, right? To give you that.